Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. He's returned from maternity leave. He is now going on Fox News, and he is explaining how important it is for Americans to give up the cars that they like to buy a bunch of dumb electric cars that many people don't like.
Well, let's be clear. Consumers have wanted and purchased more EVs every single year than the year before. And, Tesla is facing more competition as GM and Ford and Stellantis and other competitive players start to make sure they get a piece of the EV market. Let's be clear that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and we can't pretend otherwise. Sometimes when these debates happen, I feel like it's the early 2000s, and I'm talking to some people who think that we can just have landline phones forever. The reality is that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and the U.S. can either fall behind China or we can claim the lead.
It's just happening, guys. What? Imagine if we just clinged to landline phones, forever. That's a terrible analogy. Because in the case of electric vehicles versus regular cars, the electric vehicles are much closer to the landline phones, and the gasoline-powered cars are much closer to the cell phones. People like cell phones because they get to move around with them. They can take their phone calls anywhere. It gives them a lot more choice and mobility. The landline kind of tethers you and limits your ability to move, just as the electric vehicle does. You can't go on a cross-country road trip willy-nilly with an electric vehicle because the range isn't long enough. And once you run out, even on the best electric cars, you run out your 200-mile range at best. You're going to have to pause and then sit at the electric charging station for, even with the best cars, half an hour, maybe longer for the cheaper electric cars. It's not practical. You're not going on a road trip in that. You get a good old gas-guzzling car. You just drive. You hit the open road, and then your tank gets a little low. You pull over to one of the bazillion gas stations in America. You fill up. You're on the road again in less than 5 minutes. It's true that electric vehicles are newer, I guess, just as cell phones are newer than landlines, but it doesn't make them preferable. Not every new idea, not every new product is better than the old one. That is the prejudice of progress. That is Pete Buttigieg doing the exact same thing that Gretchen Whitmer is trying to do, doing the exact same thing that the libs at the CDC are trying to do with guns. They're trying to pretend that their vision of left-wing progress is inevitable. Well, actually, guys, the country, it's just moving toward electric cars. No, you're trying to make it move toward electric cars, and people don't want to. Actually, we've sold more electric vehicles this year than any year in the past. Yeah, you sold like 5 last year, and you sold 4 the year before. I mean, it's a little bit higher than that, but the reason he's even going on TV now to desperately defend electric vehicles is because even Tesla, which is sexy and cool, and it's run by the wackiest super genius billionaire that we've seen in our lifetimes, even Tesla is seeing declining sales. And he's trying to talk up Ford and Chevy. Ford and Chevy EVs are a complete joke. People don't really want this stuff. Even the really super sexy Tesla car, even that people are not that into, at least not yet. Stop trying to make this happen, but they won't stop trying to make it happen. And even worse, they won't stop gaslighting all of us and pretending that it's just happening naturally. The reason that there is any electric vehicle purchasing going on in the US is because the government is heavily subsidizing these cars, because the government hates gasoline and the government hates oil. The government run by the liberals, and they hate it because of their fears of the sun monster, and they hate it because of their weird prejudices, and they hate it because they want to pay off their friends that happen to work in the green industry. Whatever the reasons for it, they are very actively, through politics, pushing these dumb electric cars that most people don't want. And then, that's fair enough, I guess that's politics, but they have the audacity to look us in the face and say, oh, no, this is just history, this is just science, this is just progress. No, it's not. I don't even have an opinion about guns. No, it's just the doctors say. The science says. Oh, no, I don't have an opinion about whether you should go to the baby store and buy a baby and then kill someone and throw them in a freezer. It's just the science. No, it's not. Own your own opinion, but they won't own their own opinion, which tells you a whole lot about their opinions, which is their opinions are largely indefensible. So they have to remove themselves from them, including Mayor Pete. It is not backed up by consumer preferences. It is not backed up by history. The electric vehicle keeps dying. It keeps flopping. is not backed up by logic. The gasoline cars are just much more versatile. They're simply preferable right now to the electric vehicles. So they got to lie. They got to lie and just kind of force us. President Trump coming out swinging to win up all those Christian votes. The libs have spent, 3 years now talking about the rise of Christian nationalism. The Christian fascists are trying to reimpose the golden rule in politics. It's a terrible, scary thing. Trump tweets out, or Truth Social's out, Election Day, November 5th, will be the most important day in the history of our country. It will also be Christian Visibility Day, the biggest turnout of Christians in the history of our country. DonaldJTrump.com. I love this. Trump, he's really good at painting pictures. He's really good at drawing contrasts. Biden stands for Trans Visibility Day. Biden disses Christians on the holiest day in the Christian liturgical calendar. Biden's going to celebrate this false anthropology that says boys can become girls. He's the trans visibility candidate. Well, you know what? Trump's going to be the Christian visibility candidate. And so what he's really saying is if you're a Christian, you got to vote for Trump. Like when Biden says, if you're black and you're not voting for me, you ain't black. Trump is, I think, implying here, if you're a Christian, you're not voting for me, maybe you ain't Christian. This is, I'm the one who is protecting the view of Christians and the Christian spirit that has animated our country for a very long time. And I think he's right. I mean, getting back to the non-negotiable political issues for the faith, if any political issue is non-negotiable, it would be the right to life. Any conception of rights you can come up with, certainly the one that's articulated in our Declaration of Independence, requires a defense of life. Even Thomas Jefferson writes, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, there's an order to those. You wouldn't say the pursuit of happiness is the most important, followed by liberty, followed by life. That would be nonsensical, because if you don't have life, if you're deprived of your right to life, then you can't have liberty or happiness. You wouldn't say the pursuit of happiness comes before liberty, because without liberty you can't pursue happiness. So it's in that order for a reason. Life comes first, then liberty, then the pursuit of happiness. And that's just one perspective on natural rights and natural law. That's the Jefferson Declaration perspective. Many, many others. It's a non-negotiable. To quote St. John Paul II, the right to life is not just one right among many, but it's the fundamental right, the prerequisite life on which all the other rights rely. You got to protect it. Biden doesn't. Biden thinks you ought to be able to kill your kid at any point, and you ought to, at least any point until he's born or maybe slightly after he's born, and that you ought to be able to buy kids and sell kids and throw kids in freezers forever. That's his view. That's his publicly articulated view. And Trump says, nah. Trump's a little bit ambiguous right now on the issue of IVF. It's a novel issue. One hopes he receives good advice. Certainly when it comes to the issue of abortion, he's the most pro-life president ever, and he's the guy who got Roe v. Wade overruled. And he's the first president to address the March for Life. And elections are binary choices, and this is not a complex one for Christians. He's saying that his win is a win for Christians. And all politics is fundamentally theological, and Trump is embracing that. And he might be a thrice married lapsed Presbyterian, and all sorts of politicians have problems, but you can insult him and attack him any way you want. The facts are the facts. If you want your country to go trans and lib and Gnostic, vote for Biden. If you want your country to maintain and one hopes restore even some of its Christian identity, vote for Trump. Simple as. Very, very true. That was a great clip. Now ring that bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.